This is it. I've been looking forward to this one because it's episode 474. I'm dyslexic with 4s and 7s. We just proved that. 474, No Laugh Track Podcast. And why am I excited about this one? Because it's two people I've never spoken to. Crash and Burn Week here at Acme. That's always a big deal. But when I'm here with two people, Elise Cole and Jim Flannigan are here with me. Before last night. Well, actually, Jim and I met maybe 15, 20 minutes ago, and Elise last night for 3 seconds. Yeah. So welcome, you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So it's Crash and Burn Week. I think people that are listening to this podcast know what that is. But quickly, if they don't, I want either one of you or both of you to say what did Tim Slagle, the man behind Crash and Burn, how did he pitch it to you?
He was this is the part that stuck out the most clearly to me was it cannot be something that you have ever said on stage before. It has never been done before. This is not a bit you're working on. It's brand new, never before seen or performed material.
20 minutes. Yeah. 20 minutes, just stuff that's new to you. And you know, there are, we had time to prepare. You kind of came into this last minute. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. But I think that the other thing, because that's the first thing I thought that when he told me, the other thing he said is like the crowd's ready for it, right? And on Tuesday, they're very forgiving. And on Thursday, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they understand what's happening, but then they want to see the progression as well. So it's awesome, right? You're doing 20 minutes brand new each and just figuring it out as you go.
So, Jim, how long have you known that you were doing this?
I found out about 4 months ago, maybe, which is
really?
Plenty of time to procrastinate, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Plenty of time to worry about it, but not actually write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, a couple months ago, I started writing, and it's like, well, what am I going to do, sit on all this stuff? If I think it's funny, I'm not going to not say it. So I practiced a lot by writing a lot of new stuff over the last 2 months.
I think I had a much better deal. I had about 10 days.
That's awesome.
10 days notice.
I think that's the right amount.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yep.
I don't think that's the record for shortest amount of notice, but that's pretty close, I think. I think we've had just like a couple days like fill in, but
Yeah.
yeah, so you like it that way.
I did. Well, and the timing worked out perfectly because I was on my way to Dr. Grin's in Michigan for 3 days, and I had neither of my kids and was alone in a hotel room for 3 days and got to just take naps and write.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I had airport time, I had hotel room time. So it was like I had more hours in that 4 days than I have had to myself in the last like 7 years with kids and just life.
So for people that don't know, how many kids?
So I have 2 kids now.
And one is
4 months old.
One is 4
Almost
months
4
old.
months old. Yeah.
Yes. I saw you perform pregnant multiple times here at Acme.
I was very happy that I was a little bit nervous about telling Lewis that I was pregnant because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get booked or if it's going to be risky or whatever. And as soon as I told him, he gave me like 1 week a month right up until I was like, okay, I can't work anymore. Like the baby could come.
That's awesome.
No kidding.
Yeah, I guess so. I got to do a lot this spring, which was great.
That's real. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you do comedy when you were pregnant with your first child?
No, I started comedy when my first was about a year old.
Okay.
So he was already out.
Okay. Well, since you've never been on the podcast, I do want to know with both of you. So when you started, so how long ago would that
2018.
be? 2018.
Yeah.
Wow. What started? Why? Why did you start comedy?
Because my dad, who's here somewhere with my 4-month-old, my dad loves comedy, and he raised me on stand-up comedy. Me and my brother, it was a thing that was always in our house. We had a whole vinyl collection of, Steve Martin and Stephen Wright and Bill Cosby and all these George Carlin's. And then he rented cassette tapes of like SNL's Best Of, Dan Aykroyd and Belushi. And so that was, and then Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. And he was like, here's the thing. If you ever repeat any of this at school, like you're grounded for life. But this is pretty funny. And so I got to watch, I just grew up watching and listening to all of that. And so I always wanted to.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Does he still have the albums, or have you got some in your collection now?
I'm not sure what happened to all their vinyl. They moved out of their condo about 15 years ago. And I think I had the opportunity to go through the vinyl. And I don't think that I did. And now I don't know where they are. I know.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that finding Bill Cosby albums very easy right now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're highly discounted at all thrift stores,
Yeah.
garage sales, et cetera, et cetera. How about you, Jim?
Man, total opposite. I started 03, 04, somewhere in there. And but it wasn't like serious, you know. It was something I loved doing, but it was maybe once, twice a week. Like I didn't think it would ever be a job. I quit for a long time. I took some time off around 2010, and actually I was working for a company here in Minnesota around 2015, and I had taken a promotion, and they were like, if you want to take this promotion, you have to move to Minneapolis. And I hadn't done stand-up in probably 4 or 5 years. And that night I went to an open mic, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to take this job. Yeah, I think I want to. Yeah, so I really did, and I just kind of started doing stand-up again.
Holy
and
crap.
really kind of got back into it. Yeah. So 2015, I think, is when I really started taking it seriously. But I've been doing it for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there a good story about why you walked away from it? Or?
It was just timing. Like I didn't expect to walk away, but like I took a new job. A woman I started dating, like moved in.
It's her fault,
from a
you're
different
saying.
city. Entirely her fault.
Yeah.
I think that's the point of this podcast. Yeah, this is called Blame Lori. Is that correct? Are we not? Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just like a lot of things at once, and I just kind of stepped away from it. And then, but it was always there. I would take a gig here and there, but I wasn't working. I wasn't writing. I wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like you just had your stuff and you hoped it worked. And then it was like, oh no, I really want to see what I can do with this.
Amazing.
So
have either of you done anything close to what you're doing this week at Acme?
No.
With trying to, going in front of an audience with completely unprepared. I mean, prepared but unprepared.
No,
right?
I think what is great about this is because it's the 11th year of Crash and Burn, that the audience, and especially at this club, people come to Acme for specific things, specific performances, or feature weeks like this where it's something different than a regular MC feature headliner setup. And so I could feel it. I could tell that the audience was like, it's not like an open mic where you have to really kind of work to pull them in. They're like, yeah, go you. Like they're here, they're ready with a participation trophy. Like, you did it, new jokes, yay. They're very excited.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, they're in the process. They love it. I think that's a really neat thing. I've never done anything with this length of time. Emily Galati, great comic, who before she was here lived in Chicago.
Oh, of course.
I think it came from this. She used to run a show in Chicago called Punchline Panic, where an hour before the showtime, you'd get 2 topics, and you had to do 8 minutes on one of those. Or both of those, whatever. So it was like a starter course for Crash and Burn. You know what I mean? Like, and it was the most fun. But I mean, nothing to this level exists anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where. So Andy Erickson and Trevor Anderson, who are both headliners here, and I know Andy's been on Punchline Punch Out before. I'm not sure about Trevor or Crash and Burn.
Yep.
So they started a show called Punchline Punch Out.
Oh yeah.
And it's the same thing where you get 24 hours notice to do 5 minutes on a word, but it's a battle. So like you and one other comic have the same word.
That's cool.
And then you vote on.
And you've done that one?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. How do you like doing that one?
I like that too, because if I don't, for me, having a deadline, like at this date and this time, you're performing, whether you're ready or not, go, is like, well, then I have to, put pen to paper. I have to.
Yeah.
Unless you're Greg Coleman. Coleman said he doesn't write anything down.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
Right?
If you can come up with it off the top of your head, why would you write stuff? Like he was great at it, but
Yeah.
like I have to write stuff
Me
to
too.
do okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Yeah.
see his notes last night or lack of notes?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just 2 words.
It's not the norm for Crash and Burn. That's for sure. That is for sure. I'll be recording with him later today. And I'm interested to have him explain how that can possibly work. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fun to me though to see all these different styles, right? I think that's what makes Crash and Burn work, is like when we sit down after the show and we're going through notes, like your notes and Greg's notes and Tim's notes are all completely different from each other. And now it's not just one comic's approach, right? Now you've got like really funny people like lending ingredients, right? So now it's like, oh, do this, oh, do that, and it becomes a much more complete joke than just the one angle I would take.
So did you guys meet, the 4 of you, after the show last night?
Yes.
You already had your first session of writing together.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How did that go?
I thought it was really productive for exactly that reason. Is like what happens to me when I come up with a joke is I'm like, oh, well, clearly this is the punchline. And then another comic will be like, oh, I thought you were going to go that way. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so much funnier. And it was right there, but I already had tunnel vision.
Yeah. Me
and
too.
then to hear somebody else is like, oh yeah, you just bring it in from another angle. And even if it's a word or a line or a suggestion, it doesn't, I think that I was afraid of that, like workshopping with other comics when I started, because I was like, well, that's cheating, because if that person gives me a funny line, then it's not my joke anymore.
Yeah.
But it is.
It is.
And if you told one of my jokes, it wouldn't land the same, even if you told it exactly the same word for word.
Agreed. I'm a big hip hop fan, and I think they've always done it very right, where they do a lot of collaborating. You know what I mean? I'm serious, but right, like there's DJ, there's multiple people involved, versus a lot of stuff like rock and roll was always like us or them. Like I don't know. I just think that I've always felt like the collaboration is just going to make. It's just going to make everyone stronger. I love it. And there were multiple times last night where when we were in the session afterwards, someone was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I won't give up on that. Because someone else found something in it, or even just said, hey, I really like this line, or maybe take it this way. And otherwise, it's really easy when a joke doesn't work to go, that was stupid.
Yeah, and shelve it for 4 years.
It was kind of nice to have people give you that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was last night how it went, the show, and afterwards, how close was it to your expectations of night one?
It was, for me, it was better. I did not, I knew the audience was going to be excited to be here, but for a small number of people for this showroom, the energy I thought was really high, and that it felt so good.
I agree. I was sitting probably 3/4 of the way back. The crowd was fantastic. Oh my God, I was so impressed with how well it went.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They were great. Plus, meeting each other, I think, is so important, right? Like you don't know all the other comics who are going to be there. You don't know. And when you see people be really funny and be like, oh, I've got a thought for this, and I really like what they're doing there, like that just makes, the audience is a huge component, but so are the people in the group.
Do you guys normally watch, when you're doing a show, do you normally watch the other comics performing that night?
Not with a notebook in my hand, for sure. Not sitting there being like, you should have done this.
Right?
That's new for me. Great job. Let me tell you how it should have gone.
Right. Yeah. That's a different.
You got to bring that. We were talking. You're performing in Vegas next week.
Yeah.
You got to do that in the green room. Just have I don't know. So crash and burn. I'm doing this from now on.
Hey, Brad Garrett. I did some. Yeah. I like what you were doing. I got some thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's and I feel like sometimes I've some comics that I've become actual friends with have said it's weird to try and give a female comic feedback, because if you're you don't want to come across as mansplaining or being well, let me tell you, and I'm and my thing is, I'm still pretty new at this. If you have something that can help me tighten it or clarify or punch it up, let me have it. It's about the joke. So to be in an environment where it's about the joke for everyone who's performing is so great.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, I just found out last night, Thursday we're doing the roundtable and the notes live on stage after the show.
Yep. I was wondering, because I know that's been a part of this in the past, and I hadn't heard. So it is. Okay, that's awesome. Broadcasting, I assume, is it going to be streaming or something?
I don't know.
I don't know. Do they stream the shows at all?
They have in the past, not this year.
Whew,
no,
good.
no.
Oh boy, I would have changed some things if I thought this was going to a worldwide audience. I think that's really cool. Do you think you'll be able to? I've been thinking about this. Do you think you'll be able to take audience feedback the same as you would take the feedback from other comics?
Oh, they're chiming in?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought they were just here to listen to us workshop.
They clap. Good answer. Good idea. No, I think I think they can give ideas, and I'm really excited for it. But I also think that you take it differently, right, from an audience member than you do from a comic.
Yeah.
And they're different perspectives. I think there's value in that. But I think it's going to be interesting. There's going to be times I'm like, oh, great note. Hey, what do you do? Okay.
Right. It's going to be hard not to roast it, because usually that's a heckling situation.
Don't hold back. Go attack them. Just go with your instincts.
What's your name? What do you do?
Yeah.
Just get all of it.
Yeah.
Where you from?
If you don't take it well, just go after them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't hold back. Don't hold back. But I'm sure both of you have experiences like that, where when you're shaking hands and taking pictures after shows, and then people have that weird critique. You're like, oh,
man,
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a. I can't say it, or I'm gonna get canceled.
Oh
Really?
no! Oh no!
Now I want to hear it.
Oh wow!
Nothing makes me want to hear a story more than.
I mean, wow.
It's not even that bad. I got feedback from a person who presently, I'm not sure, is identifying as non-binary, but was born with a penis. And after one of my sets came up to me and said, nice set, that feminism bit was too long, but overall I thought it was pretty good.
You should be able to say anything to that person.
And I was,
I'm sorry.
and I said thank you because I didn't want to get canceled.
Yeah.
So, I was like, I don't know if you're the person to be giving me that note.
Yeah.
And also coming from somebody who is like biologically and professionally several years my junior, I just wanted to be like, you know what? I'm almost 40 and you're pretty stoned. Why don't you just not share that tonight?
Keep it in.
Keep it to yourself. Is what I tell my kids.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I've had several. I think the one that stands out the most is nothing. I mean, but I think the one that stands out the most is sometimes you just get beat. I got buried by a friend of mine who was opening for me, which makes it worse when it's a friend of yours who enjoys it so much, and just standing next to them while everyone's like, "You were so much funnier than the headliner," and I'm like, "No, I agree. He was tonight. All right. I'm saying it also, but please move on. Like, don't do it right in front of me." And he's following me around, so they're saying it next to me on purpose.
Yeah.
Like really,
a good friend.
You liked me better than the headliner? Is that what you were saying just a few minutes ago? This is him.
In fact, I remember his name. You, Tim? What was it again?
Jim, can you take a picture of me and this guy? I'm his favorite comic. Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Can you ask him if he'll sign an autograph for me? You're not busy.
Exactly. I'm not doing nothing.
Yeah.
No one's talking to you.
So have I even asked this yet? How would you critique yourself for last night, Elise? Like, how do you think you did?
I felt like my setups were sloppy. That's what happens to me a lot with joke writing. Like the funny part, the punchline exists, and then I have to kind of like work back from there. Like, okay, if I want this to land right, then how do I set it up?
Yeah.
And so I felt like I did a lot of stuttering and kind of stumbling over things, which worked in that scenario because people were ready to watch us work through that stuff. But it isn't, I don't think, going to work for me for the next, hopefully 20, 40 years to just be going back and forth on stage. Like, these things, I think they're connected. How am I going to get into this? Let's try. Okay. That's not a setup.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to have to cut that, clean it up, make my point.
But what just the volume-driven nature of it. Like you never get to do that with a ton of jokes and then clean them all up at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing about it that's so... You're doing what you normally do piece by piece, like in bulk. You're throwing it all at the wall and then trying to figure out, okay, this setup was good, this setup wasn't, this one is the same as this one, and now I need to figure that out, right?
Andy Woodhull was, part of it last year.
Yeah.
He was saying that, most times you go to a town and do your, couple nights, maybe, 4 nights, 5 nights, 2 nights. You might leave with 1 new minute or just like an expanded, like a joke.
Yeah.
Got another, like a little different tag or something. But this is, the idea is to leave with some solid new material.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but certainly more than just a minute. So
Yeah.
how do you think you did?
It's the issues I knew would plague me. I was really happy with a lot of the stuff that I had done. I talk really fast.
Yes,
and,
that's the first thing I took tons of notes last night.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I wrote. Fast talker.
Yeah, and I'm pretty ADHD, right? I talk about it a lot on stage, so I think it's on brand. But then you're like, holy shit, all that material's gone. Okay, all right, I've already talked 20 minutes worth in 9 minutes. Now I got concepts I gotta just throw out there.
Yeah, for as many of these as I've seen, I was like, doesn't he know? He needs to slow down.
Yeah, no clue.
How many pages does he have up there?
No, not enough. Yeah. Not enough. So, but then that's fun too to be like, hey, I've got this idea. Is there something there? And there were a couple times people are like, yeah, this isn't it, but I get where you're going. I see it. So work on it, you know? So I think that's really fun too, because there are times you're like, am I the only person who makes this leap, this connection? And to find out that they're like, no, it's there. I like that.
And that's right. Like that's the essence of a joke. Like when something hits, you're like, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who thinks that.
Yes.
And that's why it's funny, which to me is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a thrill to connect with an entire room of people just by sharing what goes on between my ears.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's a lot of, they're not jokes. I'm like, this is just my life.
Are we on the same page here? Are we like, do you guys get this? And they're like, yes. Like that's what that laughter is. It's like, it's that agreement with you, right? That this is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it's what it is.
Love that.
Yeah.
The flow ends up being different than a normal set, obviously. Do you have is that tough for either of you? Like, I guess you sort of kind of already addressed that.
But
like
have a flow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Usually you're like, I want to establish with this. I'm going to do something quick or fun or whatever I do up front to establish who I am. And then I've always got this in my back pocket to close strong. When you don't know what's funny, when you don't know what an audience is going to react to, you could, be ready with a closer and you're like, oh, they don't think it's a closer. Okay, they know better than I do. And so I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, Jim and I were talking before the show last night about how I like to have a button. I like to have a callback in my last joke that ties back to something I did at the top of my set. But I was like, I don't even see how any of these things could be connected.
Right.
So what's my closer?
Yeah.
And I think you just said it really well.
But exactly, and then by Thursday and Friday, there's probably going to be things where it's like, oh, hey, Elise, this might connect here.
Yeah.
Or you're like, hey, you know what, this might connect here, and you kind of find those, and they happen. I also think you get to take more chances here, right? That you can't take in a paying audience, but you're like, an open mic won't get this. You know what I mean? Like there's this middle ground where these are actual comedy fans, but you can go up there and be incredibly vulnerable and just be like, this is something I would never say anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I told stories I've never told.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, did you stream this for real? Because if so, I have to make some phone calls, But like it is, but holy shit, to be able to do that in front of a real crowd, right? Like that's fun.
yeah.
I think that's why I thought you were on fire. I thought you were so funny. It's like when you get to that place of like, I'm saying things on stage that I wouldn't even say to my therapist.
Right.
Like I'm not, these are things that not only have I not done them on stage, I haven't even fucking said them out loud.
Yeah.
And then, and if the audience picks up on that, there's that exchange, there's that energy, there's that connection. But then there's also the fear of like, I have to talk to somebody before I do that again.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
And that's big. And I felt that too. At the end of your set, when you were like the bit you were closing on, and there's a part where you're just like, come on, like your emotion is so raw there, and you're trying to get the driver of the car, if you remember the bit I'm talking about, Justin, where you're just like, come on, it's got to be one of the thoughts in your head that maybe I'm a comedian,
Yeah.
And it is just such real, like it feels like you're feeling it for the first time, and everyone else does too. And that's what's so cool about this.
I think that's all of the yelling that I haven't done at my children for the last 4 months. I try really hard to be like a calm mama, a nice mama, a patient mama, but there are some days where I'm like, oh my God, like get in the car, and I can't do it. So but I can get on stage and scream about that Uber driver because people are like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Right. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say that I know out of the four of you that performed last night, I noticed Jim was the one who definitely tried to get a closer.
I was trying to figure out because I went through too fast. So, I mean, it's fine. It's what you learn. That's what night one is for.
Yeah. And I've seen so many performances in the past, especially early in the week is when I tend to go more often, is that it's that red light is the light of mercy, as Tim describes it, where that light comes on and it's like, drop the mic, I'm out of here.
I
Like,
should have done that. I really should have done that. Hindsight. So sorry, everybody. If you were on Tuesday, I should have just walked.
as someone in the audience, I'm glad you didn't. But, I mean, you honestly could have. You could have just been like, oh, that does it for me. Boom, lights on.
There's a feeling when you're last, too, that I don't know. And you probably don't have to in this scenario. But when you're brand new to it, you're like, I want to give them something to leave on.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's worse. So, I mean, I don't know. But it's fun to try.
I listened back to both the episodes I did with the participants last year. I listened to them the last 24 hours. And Andy Woodhull, he did the last spot on the first night. And he was saying he didn't want that because he was worried about getting buried.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
I mean, following these two, and I think it's, everyone's trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and we're all on the same page, but you're also like, hey, temper your expectations at the end of their set before I go up there, because I'm starting from scratch again, right?
I felt like all three, I mean, really, honestly, objectively, I think all three of us had the same number of pops, that we all had like 3 or 4 really good lean into that like people were clapping for an audience of that size to have applause breaks. I was like, this is fucking magical.
100%.
I wish that every week was Crash and
Yeah,
Burn
right.
audience members. Yeah.
Well, and what you just said. It makes so much sense to me because it's the fact that they gave us direction last night, right? They pointed us, and then
Yeah.
we honed it afterwards. Like, go here for the rest of the week now.
Yeah.
And now you have 6 more shows where you can do what they said, and then fine tune, which you don't get anywhere else.
Elise, I loved, you talked a lot about your family stuff, and it's just, I'm not Jewish or a woman, but still, I loved it.
Sorry. Rude. No.
Did the whispering flight attendant, will that be making it to
Oh yeah.
for tonight and the rest of the week? That's
Yeah.
a bit that's going to continue?
Because I have to pick like 2 or 3 specific things, but I've never heard anything like that where I was like, is somebody threatening her? Like, and nobody else on the plane seemed to notice. I'm like, this is weird that she's like, oh God, we're flying to Minneapolis. Like it just was. I'm like, what is going on in I almost called it the nurse's station. It's not the cockpit. Where do the flight attendants hang out?
I don't even know that little area.
Yeah, I should find out what that's
next to the
called.
lavatory.
Yeah.
Right there, that little.
She's back there.
By the jump
like,
seat?
Yeah, like what are
The
you?
coffee center.
Yeah. It was so weird.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
That was so funny. And that's a good example of something that seemed like, I mean, I believe that you hadn't, but it's so good. Like, this seems like she's probably done this before because it's such
In
a
my
great...
head, yeah.
Yeah.
I visit that lady from Delta all the time because that was insane.
I bet.
I think that's part of it too, though. Did you practice certain things more than others because you're like, well, I have to know a few of these really well?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so there are certain things like that you feel more comfortable because you can't you're not just going to go up there and memorize 20 consecutive minutes, right? So there are
Right.
certain things and they're more intricate like that where it's like, no, I've got to really. It's the first time I'm saying it, but it can't sound like it.
It's because it's all stuff that comes from my life. Like I'm sure that I've told people, like I told my husband about that lady on
Yeah.
the plane. I told my friend Lauren about that lady on the plane. So it's like I have said it out loud before, just never in the context of a comedy show.
Yeah.
And so when I went back and put pen to paper, it was like, okay. Then I had this other experience more recently with the lady who was like, take everything up. Like she just was so, I'm like, she sounds like a mom who is trying to get everybody out of the house for school in the
Sure.
morning.
Very different.
Yeah. But I think I would rather have that than the lady is like, with a gun to her head.
No, ideally, we're just going to assume that this goes really well for both of you, which I'm sure it will all week. How often would you really want to do a crash and burn, like yearly? Once a year? Twice a year?
Like as a
Never again?
participant,
Yes. As a
I would do it
participant.
twice a year.
Twice a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably build most of your act for that year.
Oh,
within
yeah.
that, if you did it twice. Yeah. And I think that's where comedy's headed, right? Like you have to be, and you don't work this hard any other time. So the more often that you do it, I don't work this hard any other time. Some people do, I'm sure. But like there's extra pressure. Everyone's trying to get better at the same time. You know what I mean?
For
like,
sure.
and you want to keep up, right? You don't want to be the one who is still getting Tuesday laughs on Saturday. So I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of things keeping you motivated that you don't have at home.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's I just recorded my first album in April.
Just going to ask you about that. Thank you. Yes.
So it took me, I started in 2018 and I was doing basically the same material, which was mostly like, okay, so a few people saw that act and were like, you've got sitcom written all over you. And I was like, fuck, like that's not, to me, that's not a compliment. And so I kind of abandoned that stuff that was like a little bit safe and kind of like, canned laughter,
Yeah.
sort of not hacky, but like
Not
not
deep.
yeah. And then I started working on this stuff. I think I just hit a breaking point, like just out of exhaustion and sort of frustration, and got on stage when I invented and got that response and that engagement from the audience and started leaning more into that. And so over the course of about 4 years, I got the 41 minutes that's on the album that I recorded in April. And now I'm like, I'm ready to shelve those jokes for a little bit. I'm done with those. I want to do something new. I want to think something new. I want to say something new. So to be forced into this like 20 minutes. Yeah, great. Because I'm emceeing here next week and I
Right.
don't want to do the same thing that I did my last MC week before I had the baby.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. What an opportunity to keep working on this stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. What else should we be mentioning here before we hit the road here? You both were so great last night. But I took so many notes about your just last night. Nope. Obviously we spoke briefly before we started about you mentioned ADHD on stage last night, and I've been feeling that I have that for several years now, and that shit really connected with me.
Well, and you gave me a high compliment yesterday, and you kind of reiterated in a way when you were like, it made more sense to me right after that. Like, and that's what like. That's something you can't go to a normal audience afterwards and be like, "Hey, this joke. Do you understand ADHD better than before?" And you said something I when you said that, I asked you, "Do you feel more like you have it or less?" And you were like, "More."
Yep.
Right after hearing that, and that's cool, right? To get that feedback and understand, because I do want to say more. I don't just want to be like, ADHD is weird, huh?
Yeah.
High definition, like the standard, but like I want it to be like helpful, and I like that.
Do you think
And
that
Greg had the
qualifies
same
as a
comment, too.
diagnosis now, since I was here last night and connected with that?
I mean, I certainly get a lot of people who ask me questions because I talk about ADHD a lot. I've never done any of this piece on it.
Yeah.
But I talk a lot about having it, and people will walk up to me, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't I don't listen when the doctor tells me. I don't know how I'm supposed to pass it along to you. Are you going to chip in on my copay? Like, do you just give me $6 and I'll get that answered for you during the appointment?
I got one quick ADHD question for you.
Please.
Hopefully, maybe someone else is curious about this. I have always had trouble finishing books.
Ooh.
I've started 200 books that I haven't finished in my life, probably. Easy.
All the time. I read a lot of biographies, so I'll get about 3/4 of the way through and go, I'm good. Like, I know the rest, right? Like, I know the end of their story. Like, we know what happened when Lincoln went to the theater. It's the stuff. It's the first 2/3 of the book that has stuff I've never seen before, right?
Sarah Schaefer, who, by the way, has done Crash and Burn, she did a few years ago. She wrote a book a year or so ago, and I really wanted to read it. Then I got an Audible, like, free credit or something. So I'm like, I'm going to get Sarah Schaefer's book and listen to it. I don't usually do that. Maybe that'll get me to finish something.
No.
5 chapters, walked away, enjoyed every minute of it.
Right? It's the and like, I don't go to a lot of movies. Do you go to a lot of movies? Because it's like, I can waste 2 hours, no problem. I can't plan to waste 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, I could do nothing for 2 hours, but I can't go.
Most of the material that you did about ADHD, like, I left here last night and I was like, I probably do. I probably have it, right? Like,
maybe. And I don't mean it to be like, but it's so extreme that, like, I literally, some people are like, yeah, I feel that way, but I go anyway. Oh, well, I can't. I can't. I won't. Like, no. There's no way.
I always finish a book, but I talked about addiction. I talked about my chemical dependency on stage really for the first time last night. So I don't have any jokes about being an alcoholic because I'm like, I don't know, it never struck me funny. Like, oh, you're a drunk. Where's the joke? That's what I'm going to try and get to this week, because I do understand the compulsive behavior, and to talk to a group of people who don't have brains or bodies that work that way is like, no, you don't understand. If I drink a beer, and then now that I'm learning about the biology of it, it's fascinating to me is that when a normal person has a pint of beer, there's like X amount of serotonin and stuff that gets released in your brain. When an alcoholic has a 16-ounce beer, the amount of serotonin that gets released in your brain is exponentially larger. So it's like a normal person has a beer and they're like, oh, that was nice. We should do it again sometime. And I have a beer and it's like, just this forever.
We have to do this again immediately.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And it's that we have to do this now.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
And then again.
Right.
So I'm already planning the 4th drink before I get my 2nd one.
Yeah.
And I could be hit on by like Channing Tatum at a bar and just be like, I'm trying to get a drink.
Right.
Dude, she sort of is workshopping a joke right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're getting somewhere with that
because
right there.
the ADHD thing made me think of
it's
that.
I have a friend in Chicago who's been talking about addiction and opening up about it, and I was just like, hey, this is really making me want to open up more, because we get these types of questions, right, from people all the time about stuff, and it's hard to talk to, like, about quitting drinking. People who still drink, the questions they ask, it's hard to answer honestly sometimes, right? And give them forthright answers and have them care. So if you can like give them the information
And
ahead of
have
time,
them care.
right? They ask you the question,
Yeah.
but they just want you to go, no, you're fine.
Right.
That's all they want to hear.
Right.
When they're asking, they ask you about your drink, and they just want you to go, you don't have a
Wait,
problem.
were you hiding bottles? Because I might drink every day, but I'm not
Right.
hiding bottles.
You're fine,
Yeah,
Justin.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's all you want to hear. So if you can deliver that information to show them and have them listen to it, if you can trick them by sneaking it into your stand-up, hell yeah.
And that's kind of why I haven't, is because it's in a comedy club, everyone's drinking alcohol, and I don't care if you drink bottoms
Yeah.
up. Good for you. Have 12. I don't give a shit. Maybe you just tie one on tonight.
Right.
But to get them to believe that I really have no investment in whether or not anybody but me drinks.
Absolutely.
Maybe I just have to say that.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes we overthink it. And that's like so many jokes are like, oh, how do I say this? It's like, well, you just did. Right? Like, and I think that's a fun thing about this.
Look at that. Look at that. All right. I think we hit our time here. One final question. There's no right answer. It's just a prediction. How many minutes of material do you expect to leave here with, realistically?
I'm expectation or hope. I picked a different word.
Okay.
I hope to have 15 polished minutes.
Okay.
I love it.
You hope. Okay.
Yeah.
12, but I'll say them in 8. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen.
Oh my God.
That is fantastic. I'm going to do my best to come back and see another show this week because the first night was really fun, and I love seeing the progression. So thank you for
great.
doing this, and
having
good luck
us.
the rest of the week.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Same. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, that was great.